We are live.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Founder Hacks, our podcast where we share something we've seen, something we've read and something we've learned that's inspired ourselves or the entrepreneurs that we work with. This week, yet again, we have chosen a theme to share our Founder Hacks in relation to, and this week's theme is making big decisions. So I'm sure you're all itching to discover what the Founder Hacks team can share on the theme of making big, bold decisions. So let me start by saying a very definitive hello to Mr. Alex Moore.
Hello, Ben.
Hello, Alex. And an equally well executed welcome to Mr. Anthony Enright.
Hi, Ben. Hi, Alex.
So both of you, theme this week for us is decisions and making the big decisions. So I believe, Mr. Alex Moore, you have seen something that for you was an inspiration to help us make those big decisions. Over to you.
Yeah, it was. I called this one, What If There Are No Simple Answers? And I've been reading a lot of news recently. I kind of go in and out of reading news, but it's what I'm reading it more recently as there seems to be some very good news, right? There's a lot of good things happening in the world now, especially the rollout of these vaccines. The problem I found is it's still very complicated. You've got the different vaccines, the efficacy rates, you've got the variants. No one's quite sure what's happened. There is no simple answer to, 90% of people are going to get vaccine and 6 weeks after that, the world will go back to normal. It's just not happening like that. It's an incredibly complicated series of events, and nobody quite knows where it's going, although it is pointing in the right direction. So for me, I was thinking this as a business sense from a founder's point of view, because there are so many scenarios, it's very easy to do nothing. And I felt that problems in various businesses I'm connected to. There are so many, it's a very tricky situation. There's a lot of scenarios. The easy thing is to do nothing. And by doing nothing, it's because that's the easiest thing to do. A lot of people's default position would be to do nothing. And to me, I think being bold is better than doing nothing. And that was the point I wanted to make with you guys. And I wanted to open that up for debate. Ben, you look like you're chomping at the bit.
Chomping at the bit, as always. Chomping at the bit. I think it's a really good point that, especially perhaps in businesses that are growing, you're always going to have potential for just a proliferation of possibilities in data. And I kind of agree with you in that, sometimes to do something is better than to do nothing. But I'm also reminded of the medical decision-making process. I don't know if you've ever come across this. I believe this is still true. It may be updated since I heard about it, but doctors, when they're making decisions, which obviously can be and frequently are life and death decisions, they have a model called BRAND, and they go through the acronym. What are the benefits? What are the risks? Are there alternatives we haven't thought about? What about doing nothing? And then make your decision.
Oh, good.
It's always really made me interested that actually doing nothing, if it's a decision, can be a good decision.
Yep.
But only if it's a decision in that framework. So, I completely agree that it's frequently good to move rather than not move, because by not moving, you're probably not getting any more data. And I think that's often how, for me, it would differentiate that if by not doing anything you simply are not going to get any more data, then probably that's a really good sign that you should probably make a decision now and do something. However, it might be perfectly legitimate to say, let's do nothing, let's get more data, and we'll decide later, because actually the risks of doing something are far greater than the risks of doing nothing. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm not sure I agree. About these risks of doing nothing are greater than the risks of doing something. And maybe it just comes back to my own personal experience of, certainly, and we talked about it last week on our podcast about I spoke about it last week, about the global financial crisis and being in the situation of doing nothing and how damaging I didn't only feel it was for me, but for the people around me. Because actually by taking action, I think at least people then feel some sort of sense that we're looking to do something about this. It may not be the right thing. So I caveat that with saying, for me, would always look to take some form of action. But for anything overly complex, my learnings, certainly over the last 2-3 years of working with lots of different organizations is where there's complexity, bring simplicity, make it as simple as possible, make a realistic time frame, and put a plan in place and go for it and test it. And I'm sure I'm sounding a little bit like a stuck record, because I see a lot of businesses out there and they think they've come up with something, or they just go for something and they go, great, decision made, it's done, we're done, go for it. And they're not in that mind of that kind of, no, you've got to test it first. Test it, see whether it works or not, and then look to take it on to the next level. So I guess what I'm saying is take action, but be cautious in the way that you're taking action. So break it down, simplify it into small bite-sized chunks, put a plan in place for certainly no more than 12, 13 weeks, and test it, continually test it, see what works, see what doesn't, and then make your decision. So it's kind of that iterative process. And I've certainly seen organizations that have done that through certainly the early days of the pandemic to great success. When they don't really know what they're doing, when there's a lot of fear involved, I've seen by taking action, and actually relaxes the people around them by taking that action.
Very interesting. I guess it's very context dependent, isn't it? In terms of all of this. So whether nothing is a valid decision to consider or whether it is not. And maybe it is that function of complexity. I completely agree with Alex in terms of analysis paralysis. I've seen that so many times and suffered from it sometimes. There's too many possibilities. But what do you do, Alex? What would your answer be?
Yeah, you see, for me, putting a plan in place to deal with something always sort of helps me getting through it. There's a sort of business that we're connected to at the moment, guys that will remain nameless, but there is a bit of we've hit a bit of a roadblock, and we haven't done anything about this roadblock for a while, and now we've decided to put a plan into place, and it already feels better just by getting the wheels moving. I have no idea which direction we're going to end up moving in, but by just the moving the wheels is helping the situation, in my mind anyway, resolve itself. So yeah, no one size fits all for this, and it's a tough one. But I guess that leads us on to Red, which is Anthony. What are you going to talk to us about?
Yeah, so this week I've got an article all about decisions from McKinsey's, actually, of all people, not the Sunday Times this week, but McKinsey's. And it's titled Reimagining the Post-Pandemic Organization. So it's really about those decisions about what is your organization going to look like post-pandemic. And it's a fascinating article. It probably takes about 15 minutes to read, so I will forewarn you with that. But it really gets into the nuts and bolts as to their experiences. So they're not really telling you what to do. They're sharing experiences of what organizations are currently doing and what they're planning to do, what they're planning to look like post-pandemic. And I found it quite a comforting read, as far as some of the elements to put in there really are quite, and to move on from what we spoke about a few moments ago, is the simplicity of them. And one of the first quotes it comes up with is, the worst of times brings out the best in people. And it goes on to say, inertia is clearly riskier than action right now. So companies are mobilizing to address immediate threats in ways they may have struggled to when taking on more abstract challenges, such as digital technology, automation, artificial intelligence. Bold experiments and new ways of working are now everyone's business, or the new mindsets become behaviors that stick. And that's really that really sort of hit a note with me, because I really sort of sat there and felt that, what are the things you're going to do next? A bit like what we spoke about a moment ago. Are you going to take action? And, the sort of final element of it was, Why should CEOs pay more attention to talent right now? Because forward-looking companies know that everything else, such as technology, raw materials, intellectual property, and customer relationships, is fleeting. And the only sustainable advantage is rooted in harnessing the passion, skills, capabilities, judgment, and creativity that people bring to work. So a few things there, but just wondered your thoughts on some of those quotes and those articles.
Many things. I think it's certainly a very clear observation that is action preferable to inertia? I think yes. I think the interesting thing, given the author of the article being McKinsey, I wonder about the size of the organisations that they're studying. And of course, when you're dealing with a much larger organisation, inertia is a very real thing. As your organisation grows, it develops inertia, right? The great advantage that founder-led businesses should have and absolutely must play at the next level is that they should have very low inertia. They should be able to move quickly. They should be able to pivot. So in many ways, I'm sort of hearing this as a clarion call, not just to say that now is the time to make those swift decisions, but also that actually as we shape a post-pandemic world, the opportunity for founder-led organizations to be the ones that are able to pivot, to be the ones that can move to action faster, is probably going to pay dividends. And the point around talent, I couldn't agree more with. I think in a world where technology is becoming democratized, in a world where what used to take £1 million of investment and years of development to create, we can now download for free off Google. Clearly what differentiates our organizations, well, it is people, and actually what attracts people to organizations is culture. So I think it's fascinating analysis, but absolutely plays into the hands of founder-led organizations. Perhaps going back to the previous answer, isn't it? It's making those fast decisions. What do you reckon, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read the article. I'm looking forward to it because Anthony only told us about it today. I'm looking forward to reading it. It sounds really interesting. And what I took from your summary, Anthony, was the decisions based around the people in your company. And I'm a huge fan of, as a founder of a business, to lean on the team to help you make those big decisions. And I don't think you actually that didn't come out in your summary, but for me, the people are the most important things inside a business. And when I've come to difficult decision points or crossroads, leaning on my team to help make the answers together has really helped me, rather than thinking, what am I going to do today? It's all on my head. How am I going to pay everyone next month? Using the power of all those people. And they are, the greatest asset I've found in a business is your colleagues. And so that's what I took out of it.
And from my own experience as well, from what you said there, Alex, when you do have an issue or you are stuck, I have found that by sharing that with that team and by asking for it, it doesn't half align the team as well, right? All of a sudden they think, wow, the founder's asking me. Yeah. My opinion counts. And then all of a sudden they own that issue as they look to work through it. And I think it can be incredibly empowering. And actually be the difference between, in some circumstances, survival and not. By bringing the people along on the journey with you, not only empowering for the business but empowering for them, and can be, as I say, the difference between success and failure. So I hope you all enjoy that 15-minute read, but certainly love to hear your everybody's thoughts on that. And as we sort of move on to our learn now with you, Ben.
Yeah, well, something about McKinsey and simple versus complex. I don't know. Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading it too. And so my learned in this space, I guess, it's kind of, I know we said the theme here was big decisions, right? But for me, actually, big decisions don't come along every day. We don't make a lot of big decisions. We make a lot of small decisions, though. make huge quantities of small decisions in every day and everything that we do. And in terms of progress, it's often those small decisions that drive huge progress. And one thing I think we can find ourselves doing very often is it is in those small decisions that we prevaricate, that we don't do things. I know Alex loves to talk about habits, right? What are habits? They're just those little decisions you make every day that add up to the sort of progress you make, the sort of life you lead, and how you lead your business. So my learn in this space is that actually sometimes committing to a massive goal is a great way to kind of force your own or your business's hands to really make those small decisions differently every day. And this particular example is personal. It's about me committing to do a 100-kilometer walk over the course of 2 days later in the year. But for me, that I know is going to force my hand on some of those small day-to-day decisions. Shall I exercise, or shall I do another hour at my desk, which tends to be my decision. That I would always spend another hour at the desk working instead of actually going, no, I'm going to down tools and do something for my own health. But I thought, how does that play out in business? How many times actually, when I think back, have the businesses that I've been part of really made those big steps in progress because of that commitment, that goal? We will go live on this date at this place. And simply by setting yourself that goal, the whole team focused on it, all making those tiny little different decisions day to day, I think is a big part of what then generates those big progress events. Would love to know what you think, guys. Mr. Enright.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, first of all, having done a bit of walking in the past, all about the socks and the shoes, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you very much. I'm hearing tell.
And the Vaseline.
Vaseline, oh God.
Don't skimp on the boots, I have to say. I bought a pair of boots 10
well,
years
it'll be
ago.
on my Facebook later, you'll see it. I've done something really stupid. but no, I know exactly what you mean.
And I love this one. And, in the sort of business world, working with SMEs, we're calling it the BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal. And some people like that, some people don't. Some people call it all sorts of different things. But it's kind of that medium to long term sort of line of sight. And I absolutely agree that by putting that in place, and just by being, to coin the word audacious about it, goodness me, it doesn't half focus the mind. You think about now the process that you've probably got to go through, Ben, thinking, wow, that's quite out there. What am I going to do? How am I going to manage that? And it will force you to take action. And I love seeing the impact of seeing owners and founders presenting that to their team. And all of a sudden, we kind of leave people for an hour doing a small sort of workshop whilst the penny sort of drops and they think, oh my goodness, how on earth are we going to achieve this? But then it's all about what action do we take now in order to get us on that journey. And it's incredibly empowering. And I think it's really exciting. Right. I think it's really exciting. And a lot of people start with the small decisions. No, make one big, hairy decision and then work out how you're going to get there. And I can see it. I can see people being incredibly. I've actually seen at least two businesses through 2020 stick to their journey, that stick to their BHAG, and grow 50% in a pandemic world. Just because the consciousness was always about we're still working toward that long-term goal, and we might have to tweak things, we might have to change things, but that's always in their mind. And I absolutely love it. What are your thoughts, Alex?
Yeah, focus. Isn't that interesting? You're having the goal. I think sometimes having such a big goal can be too scary and it won't let you start it because you think, oh, I can never get there, it's so big. But whereas using it as a lack of motivation, using it as a way to motivate yourself, thinking, okay, I have no idea how I'm going to get it, but how I'm going to achieve this thing, but I'll figure it out. And just using that as an excuse to get moving is very, very powerful. But I think the key thing there, Anthony, is the word you mentioned, which is focus. So focus being by focusing, you'll get there, and being almost blinkered towards it. And to me, goals are just a signpost anyway. It's not necessarily something you should ever achieve or get to, but I like habits to get things done. and goals as a way of pointing you in the right direction. But that's just me.
I particularly like as well, because I think often we talk about goals, and goals come in different shapes and sizes, right? Sometimes a goal is, oh, we want to do this much. Well, by when? And what I like about, if you want to set a goal to do this, I think my learning is it's got to be timed, but it's also got to be non-negotiable. This is going to happen on this date. You know, whether you succeed or whether you fail, it will still happen. Do you know what I mean? So it's that putting oneself in that position of the performance is going to take place. You're going to be there. What's going to happen? So it's almost accepting some of that pressure. That
and I think telling the world is very interesting as well. I'm gonna do this means, and you tell your friends and your family and your nearest and dearest, or you make a public statement. It's very, very powerful what that can do.
I agree. You know, on this date, this new product will be released. That's it.
Absolutely.
On this date, Ben Thomas will be walking 100 kilometres through storms, over mountains, through rivers, swimming over lakes. He will make it.
Cut to Ben being carried the last 20k. It could all go horribly wrong, but that's the point, is it?
That is the point. Brilliant, funny.
Very good. Well, I fear, gentlemen, we are at that point. We are at time. So I hope something here has been interesting, inspirational, useful, or of some value around decisions. I'm sure there's many other things we could have talked about and shared around how we make decisions in business. I'm sure we will do so in the future, but I'll do my best to summarize. So, what if there are no simple answers? Is it better to act? When you're confronted with vast numbers of possibilities, is picking better than paralysis? Well, there's a lot to say that it is, and whilst sometimes nothing can be a valid decision, if you need to generate more data, you have to act and move forwards. In the post-pandemic world, is action preferable to immersion? Well, McKinsey seem to think so, and they do know a thing or two. But equally, as we do that, we must pay attention to the people who make our decisions, the talent in our organisation. In a world where anyone can have anything, it is your people and your culture that perhaps really drive those brilliant decisions and drive your organisation forwards. Sometimes it's the small decisions that matter too. And if you find yourself prevaricating, if you find yourself maybe not making those small decisions every day that help generate the progress, can a big, timed and non-negotiable goal or event really make sure that you and your team make those small decisions in the direction of progress to help you and your business achieve ever greater heights, even if it means carrying me 20,000 meters to the finish line.
Yes.
I think it only remains to say, as ever, an enormous thank you to Mr. Anthony Enright.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Alex.
And an equally fabulous thank you to Mr. Alex Moore.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening.
This has been Founder Hacks. My name's Ben Thomas, and thank you very much indeed for listening.